Hey, welcome everyone to the Raising Generational Wealth Virtual Summit. This is our live Ask Us Anything session. I'm super excited to have everyone. If you haven't already, jump into the actual summit. You can go to raisinggenerationalwealth.com. You can come into our Facebook group and you can ask questions to this amazing panel. If you haven't already, I hope you do register. We've got 30 plus amazing speakers at this event, and it's a ton of fun, and we're getting a ton of information from all these amazing speakers. So we're going to jump right into some questions to this panel. Thank you everyone for joining. So tariffs are in the news, inflation's in the news. People are feeling very uncomfortable with their money right now. They're not sure how to manage with these uncertain times. So one of the questions that kept coming up was, what do I do? How do I prepare when it feels like, the financial times, things are changing so often? So I'm going to bring this one to Jamie, if you wouldn't mind. Like, what should people be doing when they're feeling very uncomfortable with how things go financially in the world?
Yeah, thanks, Clifton. I would say things are uncertain and things are scary. Um, a graphic I like to think about in times like these is from the behavior gap, and he draws two big circles. He draws a big circle that says things that matter and things I can control, and then those circles intersect in just a small sliver, right? So there's a lot of stuff that matters and a lot of stuff going on in the world, but the things you can control are only limited to a small amount. So I try to think about, like, how can we zoom out and think about our lives and how we can, manage our situation. So you can't control what's going on with tariffs. You can't control what's going on in Washington, but you can control, your savings rate. You can control how much you're spending. You can control how involved you are in your finances. Are you turning a blind eye, or are you, looking at things and actively managing your situation? So that's one thing I would say to think about.
I would agree wholeheartedly. One of the things that I feel like is with when things are so crazy, it's just that, is being able to recognize what we have control over and what we don't have control over. Jermaine, do you want to add to that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I was just going to say control the controllables. That's where our is. And try not to watch the news so much, because a lot of it, almost all of it, is outside of your control, but it's very anxiety producing. And once you start feeling that anxiety and overwhelm, we just get into this mode where we freeze and we just do nothing. And so start feeding yourself with things like you're doing right now, things like you're watching right now, and just control what you can spend, control your debt load, control the things that are within your power.
I agree wholeheartedly. Does anyone else want to add there? Add into that?
I have my one thought is you need an actionable strategy for the thing that makes you most scared, right? So when you hear these things in the news, it creates a very palatable fear. And for some of us, like if you're like me, I've been laid off a few times. So my big fear is, what if I lose my job? What if I don't have the cash flow coming in? So in these moments where we're talking about what are the things you can control, well, one of the things you can say to yourself is, okay, should I be focusing on paying off debt right now? Should I be focusing on saving a bigger emergency fund? Are there crazy things that might not feel like normal choices that are choices I need to make right now? Like, for example, if I think my job is in danger and I have 20K of credit card debt, should I pause contributing to my 401k so that I can get myself to a better place financially? And I know that sounds crazy, but when you're in really uncertain times, you have to make some decisions that feel a little bit uncomfortable. And so for me, as a person who's personally been unemployed a bunch of times, the thing I keep telling my clients in my community is, this is the moment to really lean into that emergency fund. Mm-hmm. This is the moment to ask yourself, which things are really necessities that are really important for myself and my family, and which are things that feel a little bit optional. And maybe this summer we need to get creative about how we use our money so that we can just feel a little bit better prepared. Because when you are secure, you, I think, very often have the ability to separate yourself a little bit and say, hey, it's okay for two things to be true. I can be nervous about the economy and scared about what's happening right now. And also I can be actively preparing myself and my family right now by doing things like saving some extra money, saying no to some things that I might normally say yes to, so that I can boost that emergency fund.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. When times are feeling uncertain, to kind of double down on what Jamie was saying, is that we just need to focus on some of the things that we have control of. And when, we feel uncomfortable with our finances, then we need to do the things to start feeling better with our finances. Gabe, do you have anything you want to add there?
I think they hit everything great. It's like control what you can control, make sure you have the emergency fund backup, have the backup plan. I think everything that's hit, I don't think that I could add another ounce of value. I think that they've hit them all.
Okay, well, let me ask you this then. As far as steps, so let's say we've got someone, they've got credit card debt, or maybe they've got, student loan debt, they've got mortgages, they've got a family, so they're hoping to plan for their child's education. There's a lot of things that parents are balancing all at the same time. And then on top of that, we've got this uncertainty that we're talking about. So how do you then come up with a strategy to prioritize all of that? How do you balance all of that? So I'll bring that question to you then, Gabe.
I would, building on what Rachel said, I would say, what is the thing that, I feel like in our lives, a lot of times we have one thing that is going to be the main mover. Whereas if we put money or focus towards this thing, it will be the main mover. And so like how Rachel used the example, it's like, hey, she's been laid off before, so she wants to have the emergency fund if she were to lose her job. I would say, what is the main thing in your life that you're mostly concerned about? Maybe it's building that emergency fund. Maybe it's paying down the debt, or, maybe it's cross training also at work so that you can leverage more skills so that maybe you're not first on the chopping block. So I would figure out what is going to be that main mover in your life, and how can you put the money or focus towards that, so that, whatever that main fear is, so that you wouldn't be affected by it.
So while we're dealing with all this overwhelm, again, I feel like one of the things, and I hear you, Gabe, what can folks do to, boost their savings, boost that emergency fund, to make sure that they're in the best position possible? Because I agree with you, like we need to, whether it's, trying to increase skills or what have you, but I'm looking for like first steps. Like, what's the first step? And I'll come back to you there, Jamie.
Yeah, when I think about building an emergency fund or just an investment plan in general, I think about three things. I think about automate, isolate, and get a high interest rate. So the automation piece is the first piece. We're wired for the path of least resistance. And when something's not easy, we don't want to do it. So when it comes to saving, if you just wait till the end of the month to see if you have anything left over to put into your emergency fund, there's not going to be anything left. So you have to then force it at the beginning of the month, or every time you get paid, like automatically have a direct deposit go straight into that emergency fund. That way it's just happening and you don't have to think about it. And then the second piece, to isolate, I think having a separate account for your emergency fund or a separate bucket within your savings account is really helpful, so it doesn't become a slush fund that you're just dipping into for this and that, throughout the month. And then the third one, get a high interest rate. If you have cash on the sidelines, it might as well earn a little bit of interest for you. So using a high interest savings account can help boost that savings further while you're not doing anything about it. So automate, isolate, interest rate.
I love the 3 steps. I think that makes it tangible. I think that's great. Jermaine, I see you shaking your head. Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I would add optimize. So optimize your expenses. When was the last time you just pulled up your bank account and looked at everything you're spending money on and asked, like, do I really want to spend this much on my cell phone? Do I really want to spend this much on TV streaming, car insurance? I just reshopped my car insurance and I am saving over $1,000 a year. Guess where that money is going? It's going to my emergency fund. I called my cell phone company, Verizon, and I told them, if you don't find me a better deal, I'm leaving. I have a better deal now. So optimize. You could find like $200 to $300 in your budget every month that you can reallocate towards your emergency fund if you just look at your expenses and optimize them. I'm not saying slash them or cut them out, but you might be paying more than you actually need to. So this is a strategy that I always go through yearly, and I have my clients do the same thing.
I like that as well. I have a specific question with regards to this balancing of needs, but did anyone else want to add as far as like specific steps to start feeling like you're making movements towards feeling better in these uncertain times?
I was going to add in maybe just make it fun. Like one day, like my wife and I, we go over our budget every week on Monday. We call it our Money Monday, but then we also do something we want to do that we like afterward. Even, a lot of times it's just taking the dog for a walk. So it's like, okay, we're going to go on this, do our Money Monday budget check, and then we're going to take the dog for a walk, which would be kind of like our treat for doing it. Maybe, someone else's treat could be going to a coffee shop or whatever, whatever it may be, cooking a nice meal that they like. But I think it's like, you have to, when you build in the habit, make it fun. And then also the more regularly you do it, the easier it becomes. Because I feel like, when you think about maybe sitting down and checking your insurance or something, it could feel daunting. But once it's a regular thing, it's like, oh yeah, this is what we do on Monday. We go through the budget and we make sure everything's optimized. So make it fun.
Rachel, I'm going to come to you because I heard Gabe mention habits there, and I think that I'm hoping that's a bit of a trigger for you as far as like building good habits as a money coach. Do you want to add anything as far as like the building the habits so that it's not we get to this point where we feel like we're in uncertain times and we're uncomfortable, but we've been building towards managing these times because they're going to come. There's going to be fluctuations in the economy. There's going to be fluctuations with our careers. Uncertain things happen. It's uncertain. So it's going to happen. So what are some habits that we can do in addition to what the other three have mentioned that we can do to make sure that we're best positioning ourselves for these times?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to rewind it and I'm going to say it's worth kind of doing a little forensic analysis of your spending to see what habits you have right now. So are you ordering takeout every Friday? Are you using credit cards for all of your purchases so you're not super clear on how much you're spending, right? Your financial habits, they give you data. There's a story there. And so for a lot of folks, I would say, before we start asking what the new habits need to be, and not that I think a Money Monday date is a fantastic habit to implement. And you could even use your Money Monday date to say, hey, what did we spend money on last week? And are we happy with that, right? So understanding what habits you have right now can give you a framework for saying, okay, what are some new habits that I can put into place that might better serve me in achieving my goals? Those could be things like switching from using credit cards to debit cards so that you have a better picture of how much money is actually going out every month. It could be little things like even just, pulling out your credit card bill if you haven't been looking at it line by line, and just make it a habit to say, okay, every month I'm going to look at every single purchase that was on these credit card bills to make sure that I am actually spending in alignment with my goal. Because as humans, we do a lot of things subconsciously, and a lot of our money decisions, even though we have the best of intentions, we think we are being intentional and planning with our money. But then at the end of the month, kind of like Jamie was saying, we realize, wait a second, I don't have any money left over. And I thought I was going to have $500 or I thought I was going to have $1,000. And that is because we have these habits that are super deep habits that we've had for years. And so what we might need to start by doing, if this is especially your first time kind of living through what could potentially be a recession or a little bit of an unstable financial time for you, is let's look at the habits that I have right now so that I can start to identify what habits I might need to replace. And like Gabe said, making it fun or making it easy is one of the best ways to make a new habit. So for example, if you want to isolate your money, which I think Jermaine was the one who said isolate, or maybe it was Jamie who said isolate. But if you need to isolate your money, maybe it is something that you can do, that you can say color code your accounts or something so that you always know, okay, my red debit card is for this and my blue debit card is for that. What are the things that you can do that make it super, super simple for you to execute on the things that are important to you? Because the habits you already have, those are the easy ones to keep going forward with.
It's a good point, and it makes me think of, there's been a number of books in the last couple of years on habit forming, the power of habit. Like there's been a few of them, and actually using that to not just develop new habits, but using your already built habits to find ways to make life easier for you. Even just the color coding of cards, I had not heard that before, and I think that's a great one. Just knowing when I'm looking in my wallet, like groceries, it's whatever, the green card or what have you, but just putting in those simple tools to make sure that you're doing the things, to make sure you're doing the right things on a regular basis. Yeah. So we have another question that came in just a moment ago. It's pretty specific, so I'm going to slash it on the screen here. So it says, I'm 54 years old, started saving for retirement late. I currently have about 300,000 saved in retirement accounts, and I will max out my IRA and my 401k every year. Right now, I have about 1,000 extra per month, and they're trying to decide whether they should invest that in a taxable account or pay off their mortgage, which has about 8 years left at 6.375 interest. So I don't know, Gabe, maybe I'll come to you with that one if you have any thoughts on that question.
I'm assuming that with this question that there's already emergency fund in place and other cash is in place for just, basic emergencies. But my first thought would be is to put this money into a taxable brokerage account, just because, as we think about retirement planning, if you have 300,000 that's in your 401k, the IRA money that is basically 401k and IRA money are taxed the same. When you get into retirement, it comes to a point where you're trying to figure out, how can I basically draw from money in the most tax efficient way? So you'll be receiving Social Security that's going to be taxed. Everything that you pull from your 401k/IRA, which will pretty much be the same bucket, will be taxed. And so, but the thing is, if you have it in a taxable account, that money is also taxed, but it's taxed at a lower rate. I'm assuming since you're doing both of these that you probably your income levels might be kind of high, so you may not qualify for a Roth IRA. But so I just think it's great to have some money that's not tied up in retirement accounts. And so I would recommend putting that money in a taxable brokerage account. 8 more years on the mortgage. If you have a low interest rate and it's just kind of cruising as normal, I just pay it off as it goes. I feel like the money would be better used, putting it to work than trying to accelerate paying off an 8-year mortgage when you're trying to, get in position for retirement.
So I have an interesting question about questions. So someone like that who, they're obviously not unaware of their financial situation, but they obviously that's a valid question, right? Like I mentioned before, we're balancing, do I pay off my credit card? Do I start saving for my child's education? Like, what is the priority and what's the order that I should be doing whatever it is that I think I need to be doing? So the question I have is actually about and like I know we've got financial planners on this call, we've got financial coaches, we've got a life coach with Jermaine. So my question to all of you is, for someone like that who's just seeking advice, they might not need someone to actually do the nitty gritty. Like they've obviously opened up some accounts, they've already started doing some investing. So for someone who just has questions, other than coming to the summit and asking questions at our Ask Us Anything, what would you advise them to do? Who would you advise them to reach out to? Where should they start seeking help if they just have some, high level questions? What would you say to them? And I'll open this up to anyone who wants to jump in.
I'll start. I would say from the life coaching perspective that I think we know what's best for us, right? And so for someone like this who's questioning, should I do this or should I do that? I would ask her or him, what do you want to do? And then I would let their intuition guide them, because for some people, having that paid off mortgage may just make them feel so secure. And for others, having that money in a taxable brokerage account would just give them the freedom that they're looking for. So from that perspective, I would always tell people that they can learn to trust themselves as well, especially when it comes to like knowing what you really want to do. And then from there, you can go seek experts to help you figure out how to execute the plan that you really feel drawn to.
Does anyone else have any thoughts on that?
I would say one of the things to think about, and again, I'm a financial coach, so I actually cannot give financial advice. So I can't say to you, this is what you should do. So what I like to do in these situations is help the client understand, well, if you have high interest credit card debt, this is probably how much it's costing you. This is about how much this mortgage is costing you. This is what would happen if you opened a taxable brokerage, or if you started saving for your kids' education. And if that didn't help them to have some direction about what they wanted to do, and they really wanted someone to just tell them what to do, I often suggest, if you really want to be told what to do, it makes sense to find a CFP who charges hourly. It is well worth the hour, 2 hours, once or twice a year to get those types of questions answered. Because some folks, in my experience, they just want to be told what to do, and they don't trust their own instincts because they don't consider themselves financially literate. If they're coming to someone like me, I'm there to help them learn about personal finance, but I can't tell them what to do. So in my case, very often when people ask me these types of questions, I can lay out a roadmap, but if they aren't ready to make a decision on their own, then I like to refer to a CFP or, who's kind of hourly, who will take an hourly client, because I think it's always okay to go and say, hey, I need a professional to really help me sort this out.
It's a good point. I agree. Like sometimes you just need to find a professional help. And one of the things that I tried to do at the summit was I tried to interview, financial planners. I interviewed Jamie. I interviewed Jermaine, a financial coach. I've interviewed a budget coach. And I'm hoping to interview a financial therapist as well, because like I said, and like Rachel just put so well, sometimes we just need to find support, right? We might not, it's not even that we don't trust ourselves, we just don't know, but there are experts out there who are available and ready to help us. So if you have a chance to jump into the summit, like I said, there's a couple interviews there with Jermaine and with Jamie and with Kristen from My Budget Coach. So there's interviews there that can help you get a sense of what these different services offer, and then maybe they also help you let you know like how to find these services. So if you're out there and you're curious about what do I need to do, or how do I even find these service professionals who can help me, there's some resources there in the summit for you. And again, raisinggenerationalwealth.com. If you haven't already registered, you can still register. The summits today and tomorrow, so you still have more time. So something that's been really hot in the last couple of months, last couple of years, has been crypto. I know people are asking about it, they're hearing about it. There's just tons of talk about crypto. So I wanted to throw that out to the panel as far as like, how much does the average person need to know about crypto? How much should they be investing in crypto? Is it something that they should be trying to find out more about? I have my personal opinions and my own thoughts, and there's also a mastermind class within the summit. So if you're interested in going deeper in this, we have a whole mastermind, but I know it's something that's on a lot of people's minds. So I'm going to throw this out there. Again, anyone who wants to jump on this, feel free. But I know it's something that's come up quite a bit in the last little while. So is anyone want to jump on this one?
I'm bullish on crypto. I've been going down. I was just reading a book this morning. I've been going down a wild rabbit hole. I think in wanting to learn about crypto, I think the first thing it'd be great to first focus on is learning about fiat currency and how government currency works. Because I feel like, when you're looking at the Bitcoin argument, the main thing is that, the government can inflate the money, which they can print more, which then basically takes away our buying power. And so when you have something like Bitcoin that only has a certain amount of units that's ever going to be in the market, what is the value of having something like that? I think it's an interesting asset class, and it makes sense having some. If you have the risk tolerance, it makes sense having some in your portfolio. But that's just me.
I'm glad I'm glad someone has that take. It's not my take, but I'm interested in that take. Anyone else want to jump in on their thoughts on crypto and how much, if any, should be a part of someone's investment portfolio?
I can add. I've been clipping in and out. I apologize. I'm at a track meet. I would say with crypto, I think a lot of people have a hard time understanding it. It's a really complicated new asset class. I think it probably has a place in everybody's portfolio and in the future at some point. I would say right now, for sure, if you don't understand it, I don't think it's the right move to jump to that. A lot of people get excited about it, like, hey, so and so made a lot of money in it, so I want to get into this. But I think focusing first on making sure your situation is stable. Do you have that emergency fund? Are you investing in retirement accounts? Do you have a good solid foundation? And then if you do, considering, allocating some of your money to crypto. But as with any asset class, you don't want to have an over concentration in it. So I would say with something like that, you'd want to have it be worth only 5% or less of your total portfolio value. So maybe dabbling in it, but not jumping right in.
I think I'm more a Jamie Boss here than Gabe. I also agree. I think crypto has a place, but I also think it's a little too speculative right now, especially if you're new to investing. Like, I just think that we need to first focus on investing before we jump to the new shiny ball kind of thing. I think it can have a place. I think it should be a small place personally. But that's my take. Does anyone else want to jump in on this one?
I want to add something, and my approach is a little bit colored because I primarily will work with folks who are high income earners who are dealing with credit card debt and debt. There are a lot of crypto scams out there. So if you don't actually understand what you're buying, you don't know how you're buying it, the platform you're using, things like that, I would just be wary, because a lot of folks on social media, especially if you're like on TikTok and YouTube, are really kind of promoting it as almost a get rich quick scheme. So I would just say, be really aware if you are dipping your toes into crypto, that you understand the platform you're using, you understand the coins that you're buying, and that you know what your strategy is. Because if someone DMs you, messages you, and says, hey, I can help you turn $500 into $10,000 in just 90 days, then just make sure that your red flags are waving when you hear things like that, because there is absolutely a safe way to invest in crypto. But if you don't know if it's a scam or not, usually it's a scam.
I agree with that take as well. Because it's so new and because it's still quite speculative and because there's so many different pieces of it. So we've got, the meme coins, which I think are mostly a scam personally, but you've got the meme coins, and you've actually got crypto investing. I would, again, if you're new to investing, I would avoid. But again, Rachel, you mentioned a good point. If you've got the wherewithal to start looking at it and you're, a somewhat seasoned investor, it might have a place in your portfolio, but be very cautious because there are quite a few folks who are being taken advantage of more so. And I know this will be my PSA part of the talk, but folks who are very savvy investors have been falling prey to crypto scams. So and I'm going to go back even further. Everyone is susceptible to being scammed. So this is, again, just a full out PSA. Be very cautious who you bring into your financial lives, right? So if you're not sure about something, be very careful. One of the sessions I was hoping to do at the summit, but I wasn't able to make it happen, was something on fraud prevention. So I'll use this opportunity, I'll use this platform to just be aware. And so many people are being taken advantage of right now. It's possible it happens to everyone. I was scammed. I'll put that out there. So even me, like I got pulled into a scam. Someone was doing some phishing with someone I thought was a friend of mine. I looked later, it was the wrong email. So it can happen to anyone. But do your due diligence when possible and report. Like that's the other piece of it. Like we feel so much shame when we're taken advantage of, but you need to report these things so that if at all possible, you can recover what you've lost, and hopefully we can help avoid someone else being taken advantage of. So like I said, I'm going to use that moment to do that PSA. If anyone else wants to add anything here, because again, I think fraud prevention, when we're talking about generational wealth, when we're talking about wealth in general, I think there's not enough emphasis put on fraud prevention. So like I said, I'm happy to take a moment here, just if anyone else wants to add or go deeper onto that, because I think it's really important. And then after, I have another question from our audience, but did anyone else want to add anything?
Sure, I'll hop in. I want to say that, yes, I do think that when you're looking into crypto, it is a bit more advanced. And I would consider, when I think of the asset class, I would call it like an alternative asset class. Like, I'm traditionally trained in finance, certified financial planner. So, we would, of course, we would, build portfolios with stocks, bonds, and then have some alternatives in. So I think it should be probably a smaller part of your portfolio if you're just getting in. But to your point about fraud, one thing about crypto is because of the way it moves and it's all digital, more so than cash and anything else, especially if you're dealing in Bitcoin or one of these other coins, they're not regulated, they're decentralized. So the fraud happens so much quicker. And if by chance, if somebody gets into your digital wallet and is able to send that money out, you can't call Bank of America and say, hey, some money actually went out and I need to get it back. There's no one to call. And so you really want to watch the links you're clicking on and different things, and just kind of like what your whole technology security infrastructure is, because it can be very devastating. It could happen very quick. I was just speaking to somebody just a couple of weeks ago who received a text, sent some information, and had $8K go out of their crypto wallet, just got cleaned out. And so it can be very devastating if you're not prepared. But just like any investment, you don't want to guess. You want to make sure that you know what you're doing. When you get involved, you have a credible coach who's helping you out.
Thanks for that, Gabe. I appreciate that. Anyone else want to? And when we're talking fraud here, I'm not just talking about crypto fraud. Like there's unfortunately, a slew of different ways that people are being taken advantage of. So is anyone want to add to that PSA, or should I move on?
I think just note that if your bank calls you and asks you to give a number that you receive as a text message, that is a red flag. So when your bank calls you, hang up and call them back always. It's not just crypto. And I've had clients, smart, educated clients, who are getting scammed and losing large amounts of money through crypto and through other means. So just remember, your bank is never going to call you out of the blue, and you can always hang up and call them back on the phone number on the back of your debit card or your credit card. That is always the safest choice when it comes to communicating with your bank.
I appreciate that. Okay, so we did get another question in. I'm going to see if I could splash it on the screen now. So there's someone who said they're curious about thoughts about purchasing a home when they previously lost a home, but have recovered to a high credit rating, low debt percentage, about 3K in savings, 14-year-old and 2 young adults looking to retire at 70. I don't know if you could read that from your phone there, Jamie, but do you want to jump on this one?
Yeah, I'd be happy to add to this. So I would say, first of all, congratulations for, it sounds like you've been foreclosed on, which is a really hard thing to go through, and to get to the point where you've built up your credit score again, you have low debt, like that's amazing. So good work, getting out of that hard spot. Based on information provided, I think 3K in savings sounds pretty low to purchase a house, just because you need a down payment, and then there's a lot of other things coming in. If you buy a house, you buy new furniture, or you have to buy, might have to just buy a whole bunch of new things, or do remodeling or painting. And so I don't know from the information provided if you're in a good spot to invest in a house at this point. But I think it's something you could, work towards in the future.
I like that. Did anyone else want to add anything to Jamie's comments there?
I would also congratulate this person for really taking control of their money. I've been through some traumatic financial experiences. That's why I'm here today as a money coach. So kudos there. And I will just say, if buying a home is something that you desire, set a goal. So 3K in savings is a great start, and just keep going from there. Like, what can you do to maybe boost up your income or reallocate some of your discretionary expenses to savings? Are you saving automatically before you spend? So if it's a goal that you have, I say go for it. It's not too late, but just set that intention and then start taking action so that you can have a 3 to 6 month emergency fund and maybe a down payment as well, so that when you do get in that house, it's not a burden. Because so many people get into homes and they can't take care of the repairs. They can't take care of all of the taxes and all the expenses that come along with being a homeowner.
That's a good point. Anyone else want to add before we go to the next question? Okay, I've got a fun one. So this is about budgeting, and I know we all have our different takes on budgeting. Jermaine, I see you smiling. So, so the question is, how do parents find the time to budget, or even learn how to budget, when they're already so busy, right? We're already, again, and this goes back to just never having a chance to learn about money from an early age, and which is, the whole reason I'm doing the summit is to help parents start feeling comfortable about money, so they hopefully start teaching their kids about money and start having those money talks with their kids at an earlier age. But for parents who are already in it, right, they're in the thick of it, and they feel like their money is all over the place, or they don't have any money at the end of the month. And again, this one, I think all 4 of you could probably talk to this. But if you don't feel like you have money at the end of the month, how do you start the process of either budgeting or figuring out a system, or like, it's, again, you're trying to build the plane while you're flying it, right? So what would you say or recommend to someone who's just like, I don't know how to start budgeting, or I don't have time to budget? And I'll start with you, Rachel, because I know you've got thoughts here, and then I'll just do a round table for this one, because I know we all have thoughts on this.
Yeah. So the first thing I always tell folks is that we make time for the things that are important to us. And one of the things about money is that it's pretty easy to avoid it because it's stressful. And so If it feels like it's important to you, it doesn't need to take a ton of time. You don't have to have 8 hours to write a budget, right? If you could sit down with, if you have a partner, sit down with your partner for 45 minutes and even start by just making a list of your expenses is a great place to start. If you have a little bit more time, like if your kids are still kind of napping age, one of the best things you can do is look at all the money you spent last month. And the month just ended. So pull out those debit cards, pull out the credit cards, and just make a list of everything that you spent. So it's like, okay, we went to the grocery store. Oh my gosh, we went to the grocery store 22 times. Or, oh my goodness, like we drove through the Starbucks drive-through 13 times in April. And just ask yourself, like, hey, are these numbers that I'm comfortable with? So I personally have my clients start by looking back at their spending for a whole month, but that is time consuming. So if you feel overwhelmed by that, you can do something quick by just literally, even on your notes in your phone, starting a list of all the expenses that come to mind, because the most important number, in my opinion, is the difference between your income and your expenses. And when you start to be able to see what that gap is, that's where you have the wiggle room to start to save or start to invest or spend more money on fun things.
I agree. I'm so excited to hear everyone's take on this one. So Jermaine, I'm coming to you next because I know you talk a lot about budgeting as well.
I do. So I have a funny story. I used to walk around saying that I just don't have time. I just don't have time. And then my husband was like, give me your phone. I was like, why? He said, just give it to me. And he showed me my screen time. So I had the time. Okay. And I will just tell you all that you have time. Could you reallocate some of your Instagram scrolling? Can you reallocate some of your Netflix time to your money? And I teach my clients that really once a month for like an hour or so. And as you get really good at it, it won't even take that much to sit down and pay attention to your money and decide ahead of time where you want to go. And I love what Rachel said. Start just by looking at the previous month and decide if you want the next month to look different. And for most of us, we do. And we just start making changes from there. But I wouldn't let yourself get away with the excuse if you don't have time, because you do.
So I'm going to shout out really quickly. Most of the sessions at Raising Generation, not most, but a lot of the sessions for today have to do with, either managing your spending. So Jermaine, your session goes live today. Yesterday, Rachel's session was live. Jamie, your session was live yesterday, and it dealt with sinking funds. So a lot of the sessions at the Raising Generational Wealth Summit have to do with how to manage your spending and coming up with a system that works for you. So if you're looking to go deeper on this one, we can only get so far with Ask Us Anything. But if you're looking to go deeper, you can go to raisinggenerationalwealth.com, register for the summit, and check out those sessions. Yesterday's sessions are still live. Today's sessions will be live for another day. Jamie, I'm going to come to you because I know last year you were one of my speakers, and you actually came up. Your session was all about coming up with a cash flow system that worked for parents. And this year you're talking about sinking funds. So what would you say? I'll change up the question a little bit. What would you say to someone who's like, okay, I have the time and I've done the things that, Jermaine and Rachel are saying. I still don't know how to manage this with my partner, right? Like we now have two, now I'm going to add a little complexity, right? So we've got two people who might be spending out of the same joint account, or maybe they've got two incomes coming in. Like it gets really confusing really quickly once you start working in a family dynamic where there's lots of demand. So what would you say to someone who's not just concerned about the time, but the complexity?
Yeah, great question. I think the more people you add to the mix, the more complicated things can be. I think this is where it gets really important to start having those Monday money dates with your spouse or partner, just to make sure you're both on the same page. And I think when we think about spending, we want to also incorporate values, right? Like, are we spending money on things that are important to us? So when you pull that, you pull April's spending from your credit card or your bank statement and you review it together, are there things that you're spending money on that you don't care about as a couple? And then if it's something that one person does and one person doesn't, then that's that discussion point, right? And not something to fight over, but something to understand the other person's point of view on. So I think, managing money as a couple is tricky. And then for the first question was talking about the time is tricky. I think you don't have to have like 3 hours in a row to review this. I think look for, pockets of time where you can dedicate to this, right? Maybe it's, you drop the kids off at school and you have like 20 minutes before you get to work. Maybe that's a good time. Pull it up, just scan through what happened last month. Or maybe you just have a few minutes after bedtime before you want to get to bed, after, when the kids go to bed, and then that's the 30 minutes that you have your money date with your spouse. Just find little pockets of time where you can to focus on those important things.
I like that. I'm going to shout out My Budget Coach, which is one of the Raising Generational Wealth Virtual Summit sponsors. So My Budget Coach, it's a budgeting app, but they also link you with a live budget coach. So if you're struggling with budgeting, having someone who can help you sometimes might be the game changer, the difference maker. Gabe, I'm going to come to you. I'm going to, again, change it up a little bit. Less about budgeting, because I know you're more about financial planning. So it's more about like coming up with the plan and then the budget and then living those changes. So for someone who, let's say, has been winging it, or a family that's been winging it, and they're trying to come up with a financial plan, what are some first steps other than seeking you out specifically and getting you to help them? What are some things some folks could do to actually start coming up with that financial plan, to start moving themselves forward when they feel like they've probably just been working ad hoc?
I think someone just hit on it talking about values. I think especially when we're talking about two people, when we have shared income or shared bank account, it's really important to make sure that you guys get your values aligned. Build a plan to have your values aligned with, what you guys are spending money on. And maybe you guys may have different values in a few things. And so I feel like when you have some different values, then you build a fund, if you have it, so that you can, it's like, for instance, like my wife, it makes her the happiest when she can have some money to go buy clothes. And this can be going to the thrift store. Like, she loves to go thrifting. Whereas me, it makes me happy when I have money to go shooting, because I like to go to the gun range. So you can see she doesn't like going to the gun range with me. So I have my little bucket for that. She has her little bucket for that. So I feel like having your little buckets for those two things, can help make the plan come together. And when you guys understand your values, it helps the other person to also be on page and support you. As far as, from the budgeting aspect, the government is the only one who can spend money and just continue to kick the can down the road and not have to look at it. So if we do that, when we get to retirement, we're going to have a problem, because just spending is going to be out of hand. And now we're at a point where we have to live on a fixed income, or all the money that we've either saved in our 401k or IRA or whatever pension we're getting. And so it's really important to get keyed in on these things as soon as possible.
Thanks for that, Gabe. So a few comments just came in. I'm going to read them out rather than putting them on screen. Someone said that Rachel's checklist that is available at the summit is amazing, and they suggest that everyone go download it now. So that's not me saying that. That's one of our attendees at the summit who said that. Someone else mentioned that My Budget Coach is amazing, which, again, not me. Maybe I'll splash these up just so people know that I'm not just making these things up. So I like all of that. One of the things that I wanted to bring up is we kind of touched on it there, is the managing money in a couple, in a relationship. And, we talked about it yesterday at the Financial Therapist Summit, but I wasn't sure if the four of you wanted to contribute to some ways, some practical tips and steps that we can manage money in a couple. And I bring this up because of what you just said there, Gabe. Like, we've got different values, we've got different priorities when it comes to our money. So what are some steps that the four of you usually advise when we're talking about money in a relationship?
I can start. So when my husband and I, we've been married over 20 some years now. When we first got married, we had everything in one account. And a lot of personal finance experts teach that. I grew up believing that. And it caused a lot of stress in our marriage. But once we came up with the his, hers, and ours accounting system, we don't even argue about money anymore. So we have a his account, a hers account, and an ours account. And the ours account takes care of the household. So we both contribute to that joint account. It takes care of the household, it takes care of the kids, it takes care of everything that is shared. And then we each have our own autonomy with money, which I think one of the greatest human needs is freedom. And so he has the money that he has to, do the things he wants to do, as far as, I don't know what he does with his money, but he's got a little stash. And then I have my stash as well. And that has just been a game changer for our marriage. And if anyone is struggling with that, should we separate? Is it okay to separate? I'm here to say it is. Every relationship is different. So do what works for you and your family.
I like that a lot. Does anyone else want to jump in on that?
I would love to add something, which is that one of the things I see a lot is that there's a little bit of a lack of transparency between partners in relationships sometimes. And I think it comes out of a fear of judgment, or maybe, you know, they grew up in families where actually they never talked about money. But just having a really open, observational conversation about, hey, will you sit down at a time that's good for both of you, but will you sit down with me so that we can look over what our family expenses were last month, so that both partners, because what I find a lot of times is that one parent is getting delegated the like money task. So there's one parent who's really managing the family cash flow, and then the other parent doesn't always have that transparency. And I think that being transparent with each other about money is really critical. And it's something that I see people trying to skip a lot because it's uncomfortable. And in my particular case, of course, I'm working with a lot of folks who have debt and their spouses actually don't know about the debt. So if you are in a situation where you feel uncomfortable being transparent, how can you start to have those types of conversations so that everyone involved understands, you know, what does it actually cost for our family to function, and how much money should be in the his, the hers, and the ours? Because actually, Jermaine, that's the system that I use as well. I think it's a really good system for folks. But I think that the transparency is really important, and not necessarily that your spouse has to know what you spent out of your own personal account. But a lot of families I'm finding, both parents don't actually have a lot of clarity around just exactly how much it costs to be a family nowadays.
I can 100% relate with the one person in the family managing all the money tasks, and it's not, and you would think it was always me. My wife and I, we kind of rotate, because I feel like, at least for us, what we always need is someone to kind of be the owner, and then we manage it together, but we take turns on who's owning it, and whoever owns it always ends up saying, you know, we've got so much in credit card debt, and the other person always ends up saying, how'd that happen? Because, you know, but we do bring it to the table. We do kind of come back and we do work it out together, but it's the need to kind of come together and have those joint conversations and have the transparency and work on it as a couple, as a partnership, to make sure that, you know, we're all on the same page. Does anyone else want to jump in there before we move on?
I will, Clifton. I would say too, in a couple, you shouldn't be talking about money only when there's a problem, right? So a lot of times we tend to talk about money when we're mad about something, or something's gone wrong, or we missed a payment, or something bad happened. If you're having proactive discussions about money without the emotion of being mad or something being a problem, then you're going to have a lot more productive conversations and actually move forward together, instead of, you know, keep spinning your wheels on the same problems.
I like that. I like that a lot. So we're here, but I do want to. Can anyone see me? My computer just froze on me.
You're back.
Oh no.
We can hear you now.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good to know. So I was just saying, we're getting close to an hour. To give some, you know, some actions to make sure that folks have some practical take.
Uh-oh.
I think he asked us to give some practical takeaways and some actions. Does anyone want to go first?
Go for it, Rachel.
Okay. So for me, one of my favorite actions and practical takeaways to give people is make decisions based on data and not on vibes. So actually, I love what Jamie just said about not having your soul money conversations when you're mad at each other. I love the idea of, can we always be looking for observations about what's happening in our family financially, and how we feel about those things. So are we happy with how much we spent on Amazon last month, or how much we're spending at Costco? And if the answer is no, how can we make a decision together to change those things? So make sure that we're not attacking each other if we're feeling frustrated about money, and we're really, really looking at the data and saying, okay, what are the things we want to do differently in the future? And how can we be a team? How can we be partners in that? And for those of you folks who are single moms, because I know there's a lot of single moms, I'm sure, who are here too, you're bearing a lot of burden on your shoulders, right? So don't beat yourself up. Ask yourself that same question. How can I make things different next month? How can I be kind to the person who made the decisions that I made last month? And how can I make different decisions next month? Because every month is a new day. We're always starting new chapters. You have the opportunity to change, but you have to take it upon yourself to stop beating yourself up and start actually doing something, start taking action. And every person in this room right now gave away an awesome freebie with the summit. So go check out everybody's freebies. There's going to be so many useful templates, checklists, etc. There's so many resources available to you in the summit. So make sure you sign up for the summit if you haven't yet so that you can get all these amazing free resources.
Awesome. I'll go next. So one of the things that held me back so long from even looking at my money and tackling the things that needed to be handled is the fact that I thought that I would have to give up everything I loved in order to build wealth. And Fidelity Investments recently did a money mindset story, said that 76% of the women they surveyed thought they want to build wealth, they want to save, but they think they have to give up their lifestyle. And so I have a method that I call the do both method, where you commit to yourself that you're going to build wealth and enjoy life at the same time. And that means that you got to get clear on what it means for you to enjoy life. Spending on any and everything is not enjoying life. That actually robs you from the ability to enjoy life. But it also means that you get clear on your financial goals. Do you want to get out of debt? Do you want to build up, a 20, 30,000 or more emergency fund? Is it the investing that needs to get beefed up? So you get really, really clear on your financial goals and then get clear on what it means for you to enjoy life. It's going to be different for all of you. And then make a commitment that that's how you're going to live your life. And then your brain won't keep you in that stuck mode of like, oh, you only live once, but I should be saving. It's like you don't have to live between those two worlds. You can do both.
Beautiful.
Love it. Yeah, I would say just remember that the small things matter, right? So if you feel like you can't build up an emergency fund, it sounds impossible to get 10,000 in there. Just remember that doing $50 a month into your savings account is better than doing zero, right? Like the small things matter. If you're just doing 1% to your 401k, that's better than doing nothing. So, give yourself credit for what you're able to do and then just slowly build from there as you can. Like if you get a raise in pay, then raise that savings rate 1%. I feel like people get so stuck on, oh, I'm not there yet. I'm not even close. So why keep doing it? But just remember that these little steps will add up over time.
My thought would be, is that coming to a summit like this, and we've all gone to a ton of summits on a ton of different topics, and there's so much stuff happening, and then you kind of leave, and then it's like, what do I do next? I would figure out what can you do to start applying some of the stuff that you've learned, even if it's just one or two things. Like I'm sure you've learned an array of things over the last couple of days, but what's one or two things that can help me move the needle to become the person I want to become, and just hone in onto those things? Because you may not be able to apply everything you learned, and you might feel like a chicken running around with your head cut off if you do try to apply all 50, 100 things that you've learned over the last 2 days. But figure out a couple great things that you can add into your life, run with those, refine them. And or maybe even one thing I would say is sometimes when I go to a conference, I might look at the top 10 things that I felt were the most impactful and then just focus on one. And then when I mastered that one, focus on the next one, and then focus on the next one, because there's so many, you've received so much great information, but start working to put it slowly into place. And Rome wasn't built in a day. You'll come through it. It'll come together as you start putting it together. We took it upon ourselves to
I appreciate you guys running the show without me. That was that's why I get the best panelists, so let's just be honest, no one needs me in this situation. You guys are the stars of the show. So yeah, my internet dropped right at the best time because it was a time for the four of you to take the floor. Did all four of you get a chance to say? Perfect. So does everyone know where to find you? They know what you do. They know who you are. Excellent. Well, with that said, we're right at the top of the hour or at the bottom of the hour, depending on which way you look at it. I want to thank this amazing panel for all of their insights, for handling the panel without me for that brief moment there. I obviously want to thank our amazing sponsors, two of which are at this panel. So Jermaine Foley from Jermaine Foley Coaching, CGN Advisors, my budget coach. Thank you, the three of you, for sponsoring this event. It's been it wouldn't be the event it has been without your contributions. Of course, I want to thank all of the people who are watching, who are listening. And I want to close out with pretty much the way I closed out the last live. If you're hearing this, if you're seeing this and you feel like you need help, if you're seeing this and you're hearing this and you feel like you need to get support, there are people out there. These four are great examples of it. There are people out there who are here to help you, to support you on your financial journey, wherever you might be on that journey. So seek help, start these conversations. They're necessary. And I really believe if you do that, you will be able to move forward wherever you might happen to be on your financial journey. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you again to this amazing panel. And again, the Raising Generational Wealth Virtual Summit is happening today and tomorrow. If you haven't already registered, you can go to raisinggenerationalwealth.com. And again, 30 plus amazing speakers, all contributing themselves, their expertise, and their knowledge to help you move forward on your journey. So with that, I'll say thank you, and I'll catch you, hopefully I'll catch you soon. Thank you again.